Hey everyone, Tactics here, finally bringing you the last of my Keystone Hero route walkthroughs because I actually found a +10 City of Threads key after 2 weeks. Just like the other videos in this series, I'll be taking you through the route that we use here and just discussing the various trash pulls and boss fights, kind of what's dangerous and how I recommend you and your group deal with them in order to hopefully allow you to unlock those dungeon teleports. Now, I will note the route that we use in this specific video is probably not as pug friendly as the rest of this series because we did want to test a few things out in this dungeon, seeing as none of us had really seen the key very much so far this season. So if you are pugging, I would stick to the route that I recommend in my pug friendly routes video, or that's linked in my dungeon spreadsheet. Now, with this being the last video of this series, do keep in mind that I will be putting out a similar video series, but more targeted towards coordinated groups that are pushing into +12s and beyond. If you're looking to achieve that Mythic Plus title, that's what those routes are kind of centered on, because we do, of course, attain that title every single season. So if you're interested in that kind of content, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Otherwise, let's get into the dungeon here. Where to start? We are skirting around this first 2-pack here to get to the actual image here of Queen Ansric. This is, of course, the buff in this dungeon, usable by priests, rogues, or engineers, which is how I open it. I have engineering 25 and Kazalgar, and this gives you a 30-second buff, I believe, yeah, which is damage and healing. And we take this into this first pull, which is quite dangerous, and this is a pull I actually don't recommend in my pug groups because there's 2 casters on top of a big scarab man. Yes, you have lust, but especially as you get into higher key levels and on fortified keys, this is very kind of dependent on your group using interrupts and defensives to be successful, whereas the pull I recommend, which is going left down the alleyway, is much less so. So we group it up all in here. We get kicks in on these silk binders. And then what we're really worried about here is as soon as the actual Ravenous Swarm comes out, all of these interrupts become very, very dangerous because this is a pretty heavy ticking dot. So we're going to look how close the mage comes to dying, right? So that's what I'm talking about, where it's like, if you don't use defensives, if you don't use interrupts properly, you can very easily die to that pull. But we lost it there, all CDs. We're going to go grab the second image of Queen Ansric, and that's kind of, this route is basically made to kind of maximize all of these Queen Ansric figures for that damage amp. And so we're going to take it now into a Swarm Guard pull with this Herald of Ansric. This avoids any casters outside of the Herald, so we just keep a kick rotation on the Herald only. The Venom Blades only hit your tank. You see I Poison Dispel that quickly. If you have a Poison Spell in your group, very, very useful to when you're pulling these Venom Blades, because that dot can get quite scary. So just make sure you are using that, and then we're just keeping kick rotation on the Herald. You can see when the Shadow of Doubts happens, whoever gets it is just going to be out of the group and kind of in the open, so everyone inside the group can actually see where those orbs are going to be actually going. I think when it comes on melee, they'll like back out a little bit here, just again so people can kind of see them. Get a Dispel to remove that dot. Orbs shoot through without hitting anybody. We're going to continue right here. Pull another pack. This is one of those packs that has 2 casters again, and there's a patrolling scarab. So we just kick this guy in. We pull it down to the stairs here so we can pull the scarab kind of when we're ready, because again, at this point, we are getting a little bit dry on damage. We have damage in about, 10 seconds here from the pull. And so we get in, we get our damage rolling, we get these guys relatively low, and then I'll chain in the scarab when it's much less scary to do so, right? The kickers are kind of dead. And now we can just hard swap that scarab. If we came into this with full CDs and stuff, potentially we would just go and chain that Swarm Guard instantly rather. And again, just watch like the first pull using defensives when you have this dot on you with kicks, and then getting interrupts and everything like that. Kill this guy. We're going to end up skipping this pull. Again, this is what I'm talking about when I say the route is probably not as pug friendly. We're going to get this Queen Ansric statue, the third one. We have Mines Without Sap. I don't think it's actually required. The key is to make sure you hug the right here when you're skipping. I think you can do this without, this allows you to do it without a shroud. We have 2 rogues obviously in our group comp, so we can just shroud this. Be aware though, the Herald has True Sight, so you need to make sure you are hugging this wall. Moving forward here, we're gonna shroud. It's Soothe also, but it's not really a big deal. We hug right, and we just jump down here, and we get about 15 seconds of the buff with the boss. I pull all the scarabs, we go into the boss, we get 15 seconds of that damage amp on the boss, which is pretty nice. The one thing is we don't obviously clear the trash here. Again, in the pug route, I recommend clearing that trash to give you more space to fight this boss. So we do get a little bit crunched for space here. I think what we probably could have done is drag this boss like more towards this side of the room just to give us more space initially, but it's actually kind of fine here. As you can see again, Shadows of Doubt, they're going towards the edges. They're staying still. He has to do a last minute move because of that frontal. I would recommend probably if that is on one of the targets, just move quickly and then plant as quickly as you can to give people time to react to where you are. But basically, like, they're kind of staying stationary and everyone else is moving according to them, right? Subjugate, very nasty tank hit. Just generally, you want some sort of coverage for it. There's not a lot of other tank damage on this fight, so just spread your defensives out so you always have something covering that tank hit. But otherwise, this fight just kind of rinses and repeats. And you see we have this pack right behind us now, so we're now going to skirt this way. You see the ping's going out so people know. We're going to move that, excuse me, that way. And we're just going to fill up all this space over here. And again, the goal is the boss to be dead by the time we're finished. And we could have preserved this space by just having this first circle be in a different spot, but it's not the end of the world here for at least this boss length. We're totally fine. And we end up, finishing, right by the entrance. Probably could have gotten to one other spot there, but it's fine. And basically, this first guy, a lot of people, now there's a new tech where you can go and tag the mini boss here. They're right there. People just tag him. We have our mage go or our priest go. Just tag it. And you can now pull this mini boss into the first mini boss. So you get the double mini boss pull. I would say always swapped the Eye of the Queen here. We had a bit unlucky in terms of like the spell queuing where you started casting like over there. As soon as that guy becomes available, do it, tag him. He's always in the same spot, this first one, and then swap to the Eye of the Queen because this guy does die at 60%. You can see in time we're just hitting one target. So a little bit inefficient there in how we did it, but still more efficient than just waiting, obviously. And you can do this a little bit faster than we did it. Now, in terms of the actual city finding thing, the spies always spawn in 4 places. Like I said, this one guaranteed. There's one there. Then there's one in this to the left area to the north. There's one in the kind of back area to the east. And then there's one to this area to the south. I recommend going left here first, then going to the back, and then going to this area over here, because that's also where you start the RP. So that's kind of efficient. And each area only has 3 potential spawn points. So once you know where the spawn points are and how the paths lead, you can kind of use that to your advantage. So we know there's one spawn point in the house, there's one spawn point behind the house, and there's one spawn point in this corner. So I kind of see where this is going. I know that these clones can never go like directly into the house from this direction. So I'm going to go towards behind the house and see, boom, it's right here. So it's one of the 3 spots, and you can kind of, you'll learn basically how these kind of clone paths look. But basically, if the clone is going into the house, it would always go left here for some reason. It goes like around, takes you on this long path. And so because the clones here go right, I know it's not going into the house, basically. Come up here, and yeah, we do this pack. This is always going to be 3-pack. The next one's always going to be 3-pack. The last one's always going to be the 4-pack. Not really a ton to talk about here. It's just the Void Rush damage, kind of in combination with Knife Throw, is what you're potentially worried about. The Void Rush damage is also staggered, so be aware of that. Knife Throw, though, honestly isn't too scary. Again, it's just kind of like potentially a combo, but honestly, there's really not a ton to talk about with this trash. But then we make our way towards the eastern end. These spawns are, one spawn is here, so always when you're running by it, just double check this area. This is one of the spawns. This is the good RNG spawn because it's way less running than the other ones, so love that there's some RNG tied to your timer here. Otherwise, it's down on this balcony here, or it's down on this balcony here, and it's no real trick to this one. It's very obvious which one it is. Again, keep interrupting the Webmancer. It's not much to talk about. There's only ever one in caster in these polls anyways, so it's not a big deal. And then we make our way back to the final area. It can spawn here in this corner, so you see me checking there to see if it's there. It's not. Oh, be careful. This guy, I think it's known by a lot of people now. This guy is bugged. His radius it clips into the stairs, and this guy also sometimes like teleports like 6 to 8 yards in a direction. So we got someone web wrapped there by that guy. He is a known web wrapper, so be aware of that guy. He causes problems. So here it can be in this house, but based on this path, you can see it's not in the house because it's facing that way. And so the only other spot is around this house over here on the other side of this house. So those are the 3 spots in this final area. And then this is the 4 pull, but it's, a marauder and a pursuit. Like, again, it's nothing really to talk about here. Single mobs. We go upstairs. Someone else gets caught by the web wrapper. And this is where our second Bloodlust is, because that's where we've got it. So we're going to rip Bloodlust here. Pretty nice efficiency-wise, right? Cooldowns into 2 targets. That's share health pool. It's kind of nice. This boss fight's pretty straightforward. So one, of course, in the actual first phase of this boss fight, just tank point Nyx away from everyone else, because you can control his specific frontals. You can't really control the circle frontals, but you can control the frontals coming out of the boss. Knife throws just kind of random damage. And then when Duskbringer comes out, these icicles are what you're scared of. And so you'll want to, this is what you kind of want to pop personals on. It happens only every phase 1. When they rotate phases, you don't have this scary moment. So this is what recommend defensiving. Also, the dot that it applies, boom, it goes out. This is a magic dot. It is also a slow. So if you have anything that breaks slows in any way, or you have a dwarf or a magic dispel, whatever, you can remove these from yourself as well. So use that to your advantage to reduce your damage taken. And then, we have the synergetic step, whatever it is, the dodge all the lines, boom. And then we have phase 2. And in this phase, basically, the whole bit is just kind of stack on your tank. You stack on your tank, it reduces the damage of Rhine Dagger by a significant amount. For them, you still have to take a few ticks of the damage tank, so you want to make sure you have some defensive every single Rhyme Dagger cast. But generally, you only have to deal with like a couple of these per phase 2, and it doesn't happen in phase 1, right? So you have plenty of defensives. This second one has this overlap with the Duskbringer, so be ready to move out immediately whenever it does happen. And then otherwise, this boss fight just kind of repeats, right? There's nothing really much to talk about here. Briefly, I will talk about the Devour affix, by the way, because I know a lot of people have seen confusion about this. I talk about this in my Xalatath affix video, but the actual, this affix here is not a healing absorb. It applies something that you can remove with healing, but that healing still applies to the player when it goes out on them. So you do not, it's not a healing absorb. It doesn't wombo combo you in any way like that. If you heal a certain amount, it will remove it, which is like 50% of a player's health or something like that. So it's quite a bit of healing, but also can be dispelled by any form of dispel: magic, disease, poison, or cursed. Mass dispels, poison dispel totem from shamans is extremely powerful for this affix. Dwarf racials work, and basically anything that a class does that is like a big burst of upfront healing, like, impending victory, renewal, those kind of things, can also help to drastically reduce the amount to actually make it healable. So those are all tools that you can be using. And of course, if you have a dispel this week, make sure you spec it. You have 15 seconds to remove the debuff. This is actually the buff. Mine's already removed. You have 15 seconds to actually remove the debuff, which means one person with a dispel can always remove 2 people's debuffs. So make sure you are helping with that if you have a dispel, but that's my Devour aside. But this boss just kind of repeats from there, right? There's, in the second boss phase, you can do, there's way more frontals because the circles on the ground that are kind of moving around from the, I think it's from the Duskbringer that spawns them. These things also shoot the frontals, so be aware of that. But otherwise, kind of repeats. We do a double pull here because we kind of end that boss with all of our cooldowns up. So I'm going to take these guys up. These guys are pretty scary for tanks. It's the combination of the Marauder and the Conscript. I think we actually end up butt pulling here. I want to take this guy because he's a caster, but I think I should have taken this pack here, honestly, just because it was closer. And we're going to end up butt pulling here because we don't have a lot of space because we're kind of now trapped between 2 packs. So I think we probably should have taken that guy, but it's not the end of the world. We just keep kicks on the one guy. Tanks, there's now 2 debuffs here. The Conscripts are one of those mobs that is kind of like scary but doesn't seem scary, like the Forge Hands in Stone Vault. They basically stack up this physical damage taken amp on you, so the more of them you pull, the more scared you are, and occasionally you will need to do a little bit of a kite here if you start getting too many of these stacks. The other stack is actually from the Web Marauder, and this guy only pulls it, oh yeah, there's the butt pull that I was talking about. This guy only stacks this up on you from his Tank Buster, and it only increases the damage of his Tank Buster, so it's not nearly as scary as the Conscript debuff, which is this one I have 7 stacks of right now. And so you are going to see me kind of group up this pack and then probably throw a Typhoon out relatively quickly. And yeah, Ursul's as well. Ursul's in the Frost Mage slow, and I just kind of stay away, drop a Typhoon, keep them all stacked up. My stacks disappear, I walk back into the pack. So be ready to do that, especially if you're double pulling this area, and especially if you butt pull in this area. You will take significantly less damage once you drop those stacks, so it's very good to do. Now, I don't pay too much attention to my Web Marauder stacks here. I probably should have, waited until this dropped off, because I'm at 6 stacks now with that Web Marauder damage amp, which again only amps the Web Marauder's abilities, but this pack has a Web Marauder and it can get quite scary, right? So it's going to be interesting here. We also butt pull again. I think we like pull through the ground, or someone maybe tags there by accident, but yeah, it's good. We get this Venom Shell, which is not what we intended to do here. We intend to do this pull and then chain these guys into the Venom Shell. So as an aside, that's the actual route. We don't have a ton of poison spells in our group. It's literally just me. So be aware if you don't have poison spells, that dock can be quite scary. And of course, dodging these swirlies on the stairs is definitely not ideal. I think we start moving up after, yeah, we move up to the top a little bit after to make it a little bit easier. But yeah, this venom spray does own. It does own quite a bit. I just spilled our rogue here. I probably should have spilled our healer here. I think he ends up just dying to the dot because he has to move so much for these swirlies. Very, very annoying for, you know, a healer because he requires so much movement. So do your best to remove those poisonous spells. You know, use your dwarf racials there if you don't have poisonous spells. Use some self-healing there, defensives, whatever. We get our healer up. Now we do have to pull this 4-pack because, like I said, we intended to pull this 4 guys into the venom shell. So what I think we're doing is we just like tag these guys, and then we decide, like, you know, 5 seconds in, like, oh, we should just pull this in the next pack. It's just conscripts. So we're going in terms of count numbers for this route. I think it's like 76.5% count you need going into the actual house here at the end. It's a house, whatever it is. It's a house. It's a house now. So that's what we aim for. So I tag these conscripts, and then we all go. We go left here. There's 2 unnaturalers. That's 2 kicks, 1 per unnaturaler. And then we take these guys into the assistants who don't really do anything. They do their little charges and the big test subject. So just cleave those guys down. I actually think the other pack just dies to the frost mage and all the dots we put on them before they even get to us. So just, yeah, make sure you keep your kicks on the unnaturaler. And then we're having our healer go down while this is happening. After everyone's kind of safe, he tags these droplets here. And there's nothing else to pull. So, like, I think he goes crazy. He goes tagging the next pack. I don't know if I would recommend that. In fact, I'd probably recommend just tagging these droplets, having someone go and tag these at the start of the pull, like a range if you can have it. And then you can do this pack before the next one because you have to wait for RP in the next area anyways. And this guy just kind of does weird stuff up here and like AFKs, as you can see here. So probably would wait on this pull specifically for after, but we're likely to skip the RP. I think optimally would be pull droplets into this pull and then pull this pull and have someone trigger the RP. And that would trigger both the RP before this boss and the RP before the next boss in a good way. Anyways, though, we're going down to the coagulation. That's how you say it. We're going to the kind of the 4 corners strategy. Wait, we're just kind of rotating around the room. We're going to start in one of the corners. We're going to fill this area up with the soaks and the puddles that the boss creates here. Just kind of rotating around the boss, getting these orbs. You know, this leaves puddles as well, so be aware of that. Making sure we're soaking all the puddles, filling them as they come into this kind of area of the room, and then we rotate around the room. Continue filling this area, right? Continue filling, keep rotating. That's just kind of the whole thing here with the soaks. Beware, these soaks do put an absorb on you, so you need to be ready to, you know, self-heal, or healers need to be prepared to heal players when they have that absorb. AMS is a crazy tech for this boss. You can AMS like a lot of the waves and just soak a ton of orbs with the short AMS talent. Is very, very useful. Now we actually get caught off guard here by this dark pulse. This first dark pulse happens very quickly. You need to be ready. It deals very heavy damage, so your healer needs to be prepared. Defensives need to be pushed. Like you can see here, dark pulse only happens every like minute 15. So if you have defensives, dark pulse is where you press those defensives. Make sure you do that. We probably could have pressed a little bit more here. It gets very spooky, as you can see, and our healer dies. One, we're not prepared for it, and 2, we probably could have pressed more defensives to give our healer a bit of a hand for that one. So just be aware of that. Otherwise, again, we're just continuing that rotation around the room. Very similar to the first boss, Oozing Smash deals a pretty significant hit, and it's also a very nasty healing reduction. That is underrated part of this ability. This dot is a scary healing reduction, so be aware of that. And just in general, make sure you again always have some sort of coverage for that Oozing Smash. This happens much less frequently than the first boss ability, to be fair. It kind of has these like gaps where you get a couple back to back, and then you have a big gap like you see right now where he doesn't do one for like 30 seconds. So have some coverage on it like usual. It's not usually going to just one-shot you, but you are kind of in danger while that healing reduction debuff is on you, especially if you've been soaking a lot. So just be aware of that. Again, Dark Pulse having 100 energy, but you can see now we are actually prepared. And this is what happens when you're prepared for a Dark Pulse versus what happened for the first one, right? So just make sure 100 energy is when that happens. So be aware of that. We come back up the side we came down. That pack is, of course, dead. We killed it. Now we have to trigger this RP, which is why I'm not sure it's super great to do that. We're going to pull the caster boss first. Again, just keeping kicks on the caster. We pull him a little bit away from the actual other mini boss so you don't accidentally butt pull it or anything. And the goal here is just be stacked up for these roots. These roots do hit quite hard. I think, yeah, we're out of range of the kick there. Not ideal, but that's the wombo combo. You want to make sure you get that kick during the Umbral Weave. And again, you stay as stacked as possible to break these. You can root break these if you have root breaks. Freedom, Tiger's Lust. I could shift. I'm not going to shift. I'm tanking, but I could, especially if I was Claw. But any snare breaks work for that, and they also work for the boss. So remember that. And then we're going to kill this guy. And then I'm going to go right here, get 2 more Unnaturalers, and bring them into the War Shell. Again, this dot is super nasty on the War Shell. I think it hits harder potentially than the guys at the start of the dungeon, so be aware of that. And just 1 kick per Unnatural here, and you are safe. Picking up the Scarabs. Again, you're always in danger now when this dot goes out. It is super, super nasty, so just be aware of that. Otherwise, just picking up the ads. And we're going to the last boss here. And again, we have Lust for this guy. So we're grabbing him over. And basically the whole thing is we're going to be moving as a group throughout this fight. You don't know each phase which of Tremor Slam or Umbral Weave happens first. It can change every time. It can be the same every time. It's random which one is first. But whenever one happens first, the second one is always the other one. They can never do 2 of the same one per boss phase. So that can help you kind of figure out, hey, we're moving. Oh, the first one's a Tremor Slam. We know the second one will be an Umbral Wave. And the kind of patterns of movement on this fight is the same for every phase. So what always happens here is you pull the boss, he spawns the orbs, then you have to move. So again, we're moving kind of together here. Ranger going to move a little bit slower here, but that's kind of normal. We're dodging the 3 orb movements, and then we have a major ability. This is Tremor Slam, so we're not worried about being stacked for this one. The other one, for Umbral Weave, you would want to be anyone who can't break their own roots be stacked. That's kind of the rule. So Tremor Slam happens, so melee just needs to get out. Beware the circle only shows like halfway through the cast. Tremor Slam happens, and there's going to be a movement here shortly after the first one goes off. So I'm going to pick up all the ads here. And cleave down, watch your feet. It's very hard to see those orbs. We move. And now here there's going to be 1 more movement, and immediately after the next movement, there's going to be the next thing. And we know it's going to be Umbral Weave. So we're all kind of already stacked up. We're going to all do the next movement and be stacked up so we can easily cleave down all those roots. And again, if you're like a paladin or something, you would not need to be stacked up here. You could just, be a part, and you could have one person be a part or whatever if you were freedoming someone else just to make it easier, and just see how easy it is to cleave down those roots when you're all stacked up. And this is important because you can see the balls are about to move again. And that's very, very important that you instantly kill or break those roots, because otherwise it's very scary. And at this point, we know after the second one, it's going to be the tank buster. So everyone else moves towards the edge of the room. I move towards the middle. I pop a defensive. And again, this happens every like 1 minute. So have a defensive every single time. And then it just repeats, right? So again, even though we had Tremor Slam on the first one, it still could be either for this one. So keep in mind, it's not always going to repeat the same thing. So we could be either. I think we do hit a Tremor Slam again here. So it's kind of whatever, but it literally just repeats, right? You do the movement, there's an ultimate. You do 2 movements, and then there's another ultimate. And then you do a movement, and then there's the tank buster. Always, always, always just like that. So it's just kind of a dance. And once you get used to it, it's not too bad. Splice, of course, is the main thing you're worried about, but this no longer overlaps those abilities, so healers just kind of keep people topped for whenever the Umbral Weave happens or the other one happens. And if you see, this is kind of a, excuse me, where people are dangerous, that's where you would want to pop defensives here. So you just kind of want to watch what your health is at and see, okay, I'm a little bit low here going into this ultimate ability. I'm going to push a button. I'm going to push a health pot, whatever it is. And that's kind of how defensive usage would work on this fight. But there we have it, guys. That is my Keystone Hero Route series. Hopefully it's helped you out, helped you get some achievements and portals. And if it has, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like it, including, like I mentioned, my plus 12 Route series coming in the next few weeks to help you push higher, push for that Mythic Plus title. As always, I need to give a massive thank you to all of my Patreons for their continued support, and I'll see everyone in the next video.